Hey guys, I am running late, but hopefully it's not a big deal. Anyway, yeah, I was supposed to be on here at 2. I'm like 5 minutes late. I've had literally the most murderous headache since I got back from the gym, which is always a fun thing, right? So anyway, I put out a free training this morning on how to write better dialogue. If you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to do that below this video on my Facebook page. I put a link, and I'll put one in the comments here after the video as well. But I put out a free training this morning, which was all about how to write better dialogue. Why is my iPad dead? All right, we're going to have to take a little walk because I didn't bring my... I was trying to use my iPad for the notes and the stupid battery's dead. Frickin' technology. I've been having a hell of a day with technology for the last 24 hours, and you're going to walk with me for a second. So anyway, I'll let everybody get on. If anyone has questions about dialogue, where's my computer? Over here. Put them in the comments, because I'm happy to answer any of them for you, to the best of my ability, of course. My dog. Welcome to my world, people. This is my world. Crazy technology issues, a loud-ass dog, and I never could be on time for anything. So that's me, in a nutshell. How's it going? Did you check out the training? And if so, what'd you think? Did you learn anything? Did you take anything away from it that you maybe didn't know before, or that helped you to get clearer on writing dialogue? Let me know in the comments. All right, cool. So I thought, like I said, this is a Q&A, so feel free to ask questions if you want to ask questions. Hope you can hear me, because I've been having so many damn issues with my technology the last 24 hours. I'm starting to worry that my headphones aren't working or something. So if for some reason you can't hear me, comment. I guess if you can't hear me, then you can't comment. If you can hear me, comment and let me know that you can hear me so that I know. And I need to figure out why my iPad battery doesn't last more than like 5 minutes, because it started to piss me off. Okay, cool. So like I said, this is a Q&A. Feel free to ask questions. I'm going to go over the checklist of what dialogue in a story should be. And you can also get this checklist by checking out the free training. So like I said, I did a training this morning. It's linked on my Facebook page, and it's called How to Write Better Dialogue. So it walks you through an example of poorly written dialogue and then revised better dialogue, and explains to you why it's good, why it works, why the other one doesn't work. There's a chart that just kind of compares the two and tells you which ones are, better and why. And then there's a checklist that shows you exactly what you should be looking for when you're writing your dialogue. Now, there is a video training, but there's also a PDF you can download so that you can print it out if you want, make notes on it, etc. So feel free to do that as well. And like I said, after this video, I will put the links in the comments. So if you haven't checked out the training yet, you can do that. And there are 2 more trainings coming over the next 2 days. So I'm actually covering tomorrow and Thursday the other 2 most common things that I see writers having trouble with in their stories. So yeah, if you have trouble with episodic narrative or story structure, if you have trouble with dialogue, which was today's training, or if you have trouble with backstory, so if you tend to not know how to put backstory into your story, then stay tuned, because I have, like I said, videos coming out tomorrow and Thursday, which will cover backstory and episodic narrative. So, okay, cool. So I'm going to go through some of the stuff from this checklist and just talk about why it matters and why you should think about this with your dialogue for your story. And then again, if you have questions, let me know. Okay, so dialogue in a story should always be punchy, concise, and to the point. Now, what does that mean? It means that you don't want to have long, drawn-out paragraphs of dialogue. You don't want to have a page and a half where someone's just talking like it's a speech, because the problem is that's not how people talk. And so in a story, it doesn't make sense to have somebody there just talking for pages and pages and pages, because all that's going to do is make it so that you bore your reader. And so your reader is just really really lost. Oh my God, my dog will not stop barking. So your reader just gets confused and just overwhelmed with, why are they telling me so much stuff? So dialogue should be short, sweet, punchy, concise, and of course, the way people actually talk. Now, something that's very key for dialogue, and this is especially for novels, is that you leave out the characters' names. So you'll see this in movies a lot. I don't know why, and still to this day, I have no idea why. I've never heard anybody talk about why this is the case for movies, but don't do this because it's wrong. And that is having people say each other's names in the dialogue. So, for example, hey, Bill, how are you today? Oh, I'm great, Bob. How are you? Well, Bill, I'm not doing that great because I'm kind of sick. Oh, Bob, that's too bad. I wish you would get better soon. Well, Bill, blah, blah, blah. People don't talk like that. People don't say each other's names when they're talking to each other. It is very rare. And if you spend any time with people, your friends, your family, whoever, you'll notice that no one really says each other's names. And so it's actually a huge mistake and actually an amateur move for a writer to be writing dialogue where we're getting the characters' names over and over and over again as they're talking to each other. Now, again, I know they do this in movies. I don't know why yet. One day I'm going to figure it out because I am going to work in Hollywood. I am going to be a screenwriter, and I will find out why that's the case for most movies. That wouldn't be the case in my movie because I know better. But the point is, people say each other's names in movies all the time. I don't know why, but they do. But in your novel, don't do that. So that is a huge error. And really, it's annoying. No one needs to keep saying each other's names. They know who they're talking to. The reader knows who they're talking to. We don't need to see anything else. So leave the names out. And when I say leave the names out, I don't mean leave the name out as in telling us who said it, but I mean in the actual dialogue, in the quotes. So afterward, tell us who said it, obviously. Said this person, etc. Okay, you want your dialogue to sound how people actually talk. Now, this is super important because if it doesn't sound like people actually talk, then you're gonna end up with dialogue that's flat, that's just not interesting, that doesn't do anything for your story. So you want to make sure that it sounds how people actually talk. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, my recommendation is two things. So one would be to just go sit somewhere with your laptop or with a notebook and just listen to the way people talk and just write down what they're saying. So examples of things that they're saying, just write down what they're saying. And then the second idea here, and this was something that I did in college that was a lot of fun, was we went to the cafeteria, we sat down, we listened to people talking around us, we made notes, so we basically just wrote down whatever lines of dialogue we were hearing people say, and then we went back to the classroom and we actually wrote a short story, and with the only dialogue we were allowed to use in the story was the stuff we wrote down for what people had actually said in the cafeteria. So this is a really good exercise because it's practicing writing dialogue, how people actually talk, and building a story around what people are actually saying and how they say it. So I thought that was just a really fun exercise, and it definitely helped me a lot in learning how to write better dialogue. Now, watching movies is another great place to learn how to write dialogue, as long as you ignore the fact that they say each other's names too often, because that's not good dialogue. But everything else is good. And with movies, it's got to be more concise. It's got to happen in a shorter time frame, and so, they do a much better job at making the dialogue short and sweet, which is perfect. Now, you want to have dialogue that has contractions. So the thing you don't want is to have all of your characters saying things completely spelled out. So I am a great writer. I went to the mall yesterday, blah, 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 blah. Use contractions. I'm, wasn't, weren't, because people, that's how they talk. They don't talk in completely spelled out formal words. They talk in slang, and they talk in, like with contractions, and they say things in ways where it's like you're not even getting a full sentence sometimes. You're just getting like a little blip of a sentence, but it's okay because that's how people talk in real life. And so that's how you want them to talk in your story. So if you're not using contractions, use them. And now you may have one or two characters that maybe they're older, or they're more formal, or maybe it's a time period. So maybe you're writing a story in the 1700s or something. Maybe they didn't use contractions as much back then. I really wouldn't know. But the point is, if you are doing that, then do your research and figure out how people actually talked during that time period. So that kind of fits right into fitting the story, the dialogue. So your dialogue should fit the story. It should fit the time period, the genre that you've been writing in, your characters, etc. So what you don't want is it's the 1800s and people are talking in, modern day slang. So people in the 1800s are not going to walk around saying things like, awesome or cool or, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just dumb as fuck. Like, that's what modern day people say. People back then wouldn't say that. So keep in mind the time period, the genre that you're writing in, the type of people that you're writing about, because that will, of course, dictate what your dialogue is and what dialogue you want to use for the story. And then keeping in mind that you want to be as casual as you can, unless you're writing a more formal story. So if you're writing a story where it is based in a time period that would be more formal, or maybe you're writing a story about, the Crown Prince of England or something. In that case, maybe he talks more formally. He probably wouldn't use contractions and things like that, although I still feel like he probably would. But again, it's just considering who are these people that you're writing about and how would they say things. Because that's what really matters when it comes to dialogue, is that they're saying things in the way that an actual person would say them, that it sounds like real dialogue, and then it's not just jumbled nonsense. And if you look at the example in the PDF, which again I said I would link to after this, you can see side by side the examples to see that the first one is super wordy and just way too much going on in the actual dialogue, where you kind of lose the point of the conversation, versus the second example, you see much more clearly how simplistic it is, and yet it brings more emotion to the story and to that scene. So if you haven't, like I said, checked out my training that I did on writing better dialogue, definitely do that. You can find it on my Facebook page here. You can also find it in the 1% Writers Club group, and I'll link to it after this video. Okay, so your dialogue should be memorable. I mean, now it doesn't mean that every line has to be, but think about how you can make your dialogue memorable so that it's memorable to your reader, that it makes an impact on them. I'm just thinking of movies where like people quote the movies all the time. So movies from like the 90s that people still quote today. And that's because the dialogue was so memorable. It's something that you just can't forget because it was so interesting, and the way that they were saying things was so different, or just, funny or cool. And so you just keep repeating it. And me and my husband do this all the time. So we're constantly quoting movie lines and laughing about it. And half the time people around us have no freaking clue what we're talking about, which makes it even funnier, I think. But the whole idea is that people quote these movies because the dialogue was memorable. So how can you write memorable dialogue? So one really good line from the movie Reservoir Dogs, which I remember, I've always remembered this line, and I literally have only seen that movie like once, maybe twice, over the course of my entire life since it's been out, is, "Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?" Now, this is Tarantino speak, obviously, but he is so good at just taking dialogue and writing it in a way that makes it interesting and memorable, so that the guy is talking and it's like, oh, this is really cool, versus he's just saying, "Hey man, are you going to fight with me now?" Or, "I'm going to kick your ass now." Like, he could have said that and it would have been really boring and lame, but he didn't. He said it in a more poetic way that was just more interesting and memorable. So how can you make your dialogue more memorable? Think about that. Then you want to make sure that you have your characters sound unique. Now, this is probably the toughest piece of writing dialogue, and it's something that I think takes a lot of years to learn. So if you're not quite there yet, don't stress out, because I don't think any writer really gets there right away. I feel like it's sort of something you learn over the course of your writing journey. I absolutely am still learning this, but it's how to make your characters sound unique. So you want to think about, who is this character? How would they say things? What's their background? Because obviously a person who was raised, in another country in a first-class life with, a silver spoon in their mouth is going to probably talk much differently than someone who was raised in, the projects of the Bronx or something. So consider the character and who's talking, because they're going to say things much differently than they would if they were somebody else. So this is one way to make your character's dialogue unique, is to think about who they are as a person, how would they actually say things, and make it so that it's cohesive to their character. Now, this is, of course, important because if all your characters sound the same, it makes it hard for the reader to decipher them. And even though you're telling them who said what, it's still not that memorable, and it doesn't make it easy for them to pay attention, and they kind of just lose who said that, and they can't remember the character who said it. So it's literally like they're thinking, which character said that, and they can't remember. Whereas you definitely don't forget that Michael Madsen, the actor, is the one who said the line in Reservoir Dogs about, "Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?" Like, you're not going to forget that, because not only was the line memorable, but he was memorable as a character and as a person. So think about how you can bring this to life in your stories, and how you can take the ideas that you have for who this person is and bring it to life through their dialogue. And then, of course, sharing, bits and pieces of who they are as a character and backstory and all that stuff through your dialogue. And we're going to talk more about backstory tomorrow. Okay, and then the final thing on the checklist is just less is more. So less is more. When it comes to dialogue, less is more. So literally, if you look at the dialogue you've written, go back through it and ask yourself, could this be shorter? Is there a way I could say this that would be more concise, that would be clearer, that would be shorter, or that would be less, wordy? Because again, dialogue is supposed to be like how people talk. And unless you're at a speech or a lecture or something, you're not going to see somebody talking for paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and pages, because that's just not how people talk. So if you were transcribing, a live stream, yeah, you would see the same person talking. But this isn't a live stream, that you're not writing a live stream, you're writing a novel. So in that case, you want the dialogue to be punchy and short and just to the point. So those are my tips for you on how to write better dialogue. I hope that they're helpful. Like I said, be sure to check out the free training because I went into much more detail on all of this, and I gave you side-by-side examples of really badly written dialogue and dialogue that's better, and showed you what the differences were and why, most importantly. So be sure to check that out, and I will put it in the comments after this. Hey, Cynthia, welcome. Be sure to watch the replay if you didn't catch the beginning. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this up right now and go work on the training for tomorrow. So tomorrow's training is on backstory, how to handle backstory in your novel, because I see this all the time, writers making huge mistake with backstory, and it really just ruins the story. It really takes the reader out of the scene because now they're having to, hold on, let's stop what we were just doing to read all this backstory, pages and pages of backstory that we don't even need. So that's why I'm going to cover that tomorrow, because it is a huge mistake that writers make, and it's one that I don't want you to make. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for joining me for the live stream, and if you're watching this as a replay, you can feel free to put your questions in the comments, because I will come back and check them later on tonight and tomorrow as well. And yeah, that's it for now. And if you want to write a badass story in 2018, so if this is the year that you finally throw your old way of doing things out the window and step into having a process and a step-by-step plan to actually get you from idea to first draft that's actually good, so that you can take that draft, revise it, and publish it in the next 12 to 18 months, then be sure to check out Write Your Damn Novel. We are opening the doors to new students on Monday the 22nd, so next week. And you can get on the waitlist right now by going to bit.ly/writeyourdamnnovel. And I will see you guys tomorrow.